The restaurant lights shimmered like tiny stars reflected in glass. Soft jazz floated through the air, but Emily Carter sat alone at the corner table, her perfectly styled hair framing a face that hid exhaustion beneath elegance. At just 35, she was already a CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the city. But her wheelchair tucked neatly against the table told another story. A car accident 3 years earlier had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Tonight was supposed to be different. Her best friend had convinced her to go on a blind date, insisting, "Emily, you deserve to feel alive again. Just give it a chance." So here she was. Lipstick carefully applied, a navy silk dress flowing gracefully despite her doubts, and a fragile hope flickering in her chest. But the man she was waiting for never showed. Minutes stretched into an hour. The waiter's polite smiles began to sting. Emily's heart sank with each tick of the clock until humiliation sat heavy in her chest. She reached for her phone, ready to call her driver and escape, when the restaurant door swung open. A man walked in, not in a suit, not polished like the kind of people Emily usually dined with. His shirt carried faint grease stains, his hands rough from years of work, and his dark hair was tousled, as though he'd rushed straight from a job. A mechanic. He scanned the room, eyes locking on her. Then, unbelievably, he walked toward her table. "Emily?" he asked, his voice warm, almost surprised. She blinked. "Yes. I'm Jake. Sorry I'm late." He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "Had to finish a repair for a stranded family on the highway. I couldn't just leave them there." Emily froze. This was her blind date? Her friend hadn't mentioned a mechanic. She'd expected a lawyer, maybe a doctor, someone who matched her world. Not this. But something in his eyes made her pause. They weren't apologetic in the way men usually were around her wheelchair, pitying or overly careful. His eyes held genuine kindness. Against her better judgment, Emily gestured for him to sit. At first, the evening felt clumsy. She asked about his work, expecting simple answers, but his stories were unexpectedly vivid, how he stayed up all night rebuilding an old car for a teenage boy who'd lost his father, or how he sometimes fixed cars for single moms without charging a dime. "People think it's just nuts and bolts," Jake said with a grin, "but sometimes, fixing a car means keeping someone's life moving. That's more important than the paycheck." Emily found herself laughing for the first time in months. She laughed at the grease smudge he accidentally left on his cheek. She laughed when he admitted he was nervous and almost walked out, thinking she'd be way out of his league. Hours slipped by unnoticed. Then came the twist. As they left the restaurant, Emily's driver was late. A drizzle turned into heavy rain, and her wheelchair wheels caught on the curb outside. Usually, she hated when people rushed to help, it made her feel small, fragile. But Jake didn't hesitate, and he didn't make a show of it. He simply crouched, steadied the chair with steady, confident hands, and joked, "Guess this thing needs a tune-up too, huh?" For the first time in years, Emily didn't feel broken. She just felt normal. The ride home was quiet, but Emily's mind wasn't. This wasn't the night she expected. She hadn't found the polished executive her friends imagined. Instead, she'd met someone whose kindness reached further than ambition ever could. When Jake finally dropped her off at her building, he didn't give a rehearsed line or fish for another date. He just said, softly, "I had a really good time, Emily. Thanks for letting me sit at your table tonight." Her throat tightened. She managed to smile. "No, Jake. Thank you for walking in." That night, Emily lay awake replaying his stories, his laughter, his quiet strength. And for the first time since the accident, she felt something shift inside her. A reminder that joy wasn't lost forever, it had just been waiting for the right person to spark it again. A mechanic, of all people. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Jake met again. Coffee instead of cocktails. Walks in the park instead of boardrooms. He showed her that happiness wasn't about grand gestures or flawless perfection, it was about small acts of kindness, moments of honesty, and the courage to truly see another person. One afternoon, as they sat watching the sunset, Emily whispered, almost to herself, "I never thought I'd smile like this again." Jake glanced at her, puzzled. "Why not? You've got a great smile. It'd be a shame to hide it." And she realized, that was the difference. He didn't see her as the paralyzed CEO. He just saw her. The world often measured success in money, power, appearances. But that blind date disaster, the night she expected nothing but disappointment, turned into the beginning of something real. Something that healed more than she knew was broken. Because sometimes the people who walk into our lives covered in grease and late to dinner, are the ones who teach us how to live again.